Welcome back to Mornings with Zerlina. I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Joining us today is the former Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris. Madam Vice President, thank you so much for being with us today. It is so great to see you on my screen.
It's good to be with you, Zerlina, and to see you. Thank you. It's good to be with you.
So I have a lot of questions about your amazing book, which, as you can see on the screen, I have tabbed up. I loved it. I made my way through it quickly. But I want to actually start with some news because I think you are uniquely positioned based on your experience as vice president to talk about these boat strikes that we've been seeing and talking about coming from the Caribbean. What is your assessment of what the Trump administration is doing and why?
Well, I obviously haven't been in the classified hearings, and so I don't have full information about what's happening, but Congress is absolutely right to demand answers. I served in the United States Senate, and then, of course, as Vice President of the United States, I had access to all of that classified information, spent a great deal of time in the Situation Room, sometimes asking very pointed, if not cross-examining, leaders about what we were doing in terms of our military responses and actions. So from what I've seen, I'm very concerned, and I'm glad that members of Congress and bipartisan members of Congress are stepping up and asking for answers. I served on the Senate Intelligence Committee during the time I was there, and I'm glad to see that members of that committee in particular have been very forceful. But the American people have a right to have answers. What we've heard so far from the members of Congress that have actually seen the classified information, it sounds like in particular what they've seen is a video, it suggests that if we, the American people, were to see the same thing, we would be absolutely outraged. And this would not be the only example of where this administration is trying to keep the truth from the American people. They are doing it across the board, whether it be trying to have members of the press, journalists, sign off on allowing the administration to basically check their homework if they cover the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, or what they have been doing that is full time about obfuscating and withholding the truth from the American people. Zerlina, this administration does not want the American people to know the truth.
So, in terms of the legal questions, we've talked to several members of the House Intelligence and Armed Services Committees and the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committees, and I think there are real legal questions at play here. What are the mechanisms for accountability here?
Oh, Zerlina, isn't that an existential question about this administration writ large? It really is. Because, look, we predicted a lot of this.
We did.
And it is about what we talked about before the election and has been vividly on display for these last 10 months, 11 months, which is there are virtually no checks and balances on these blatant abuses of power by this administration and this president. Whether it be the checks and balances that would exist within the United States government, meaning agencies such as the Department of Justice actually doing their job and not being a personal lawyer and pawn, or whether it would be the checks and balances that we should expect from the three independent co-equal branches of government. That being said, I do again applaud bipartisan members of Congress on this subject for speaking up. They have been on the Epstein files as well. I applaud that. But then there are many other circumstances in which Congress has not stepped up. And I don't know, I think that part of the reality of what this is all highlighting for us is these midterm elections in just a matter of months can reinforce the checks and balances, because if we win back the House, if we win back the Senate, God willing we win both, then Congress can do its job. But Congress being led right now by Republican members are clearly, I was talking to somebody just yesterday who was a member of Congress, and I was asking him, I mean, what is going on with your Republican colleagues? And he's been a member of Congress for years. He has very good relationships across the aisle. And he said they're scared. They're scared that if they go against this guy, that he will run a candidate against them. They are scared because he is so unfiltered and he knows no floor that their families might be exposed to threats.
Mm.
They're afraid that if this guy speaks against them, that they will be exposed to threats that could, threats to their safety, not only their professional lives and their electoral lives. And so, this is where we are. But I do, and I've always said and believe the power is with the people in many ways, and especially now, I think it's important that we remind everyone of that, even though it feels like things are happening to us.
Right.
And with the election now right in front of us, the midterms approaching quickly, this is our opportunity, at least for right now, to impose some checks and balances against these clear abuses of power.
I want to talk about the book. As I mentioned, I tabbed it up. I loved the book. I think books that recount recent history are they're full of lessons that we can apply to the present moment and to the near future. What are some of the things as you were revisiting this just 107 days, which is even reading the book, it went fast, right? What are some of the things that you revisited that allowed you to learn something about yourself and leadership?
There a lot. It did happen so very quickly. That, I start the book on July 21st, which is the day that President Biden called me to tell me he was dropping out. And there were many lessons I learned, many things about myself, including that in these moments where the stakes are extraordinarily high, there are some things you just can't plan for.
Mm.
In fact, a lot. And you're going to have to trust your instincts and make a decision based on, this sounds so trite, but what your gut tells you at that
Mm.
moment. And also rely on and trust your team. And as you know, I dedicated the book to my team who
Hmm.
gave so much of themselves. Um, but that was one of the things that I learned is to trust my instincts and not necessarily listen to all of the things, all of the apparatus that surrounds a campaign. Um, I learned that it was reinforced for me how incredible, this sounds, again, it's going to sound so corny, but I really mean it, how incredible the American people are. I mean, people just showed up so big,
Yeah.
they showed up with their full selves, people of all kinds of backgrounds and walks of life, and were there in community. And, part of what I've been talking about on the book tour is that's in us. That was not just about me or our campaign. People brought that
Right.
of themselves, brought that from themselves, and it's still there. And we cannot allow our spirit to be defeated. We cannot allow that any one election or individual or circumstance wipes out that light or dims that light that we each carry in our belief about what's possible.
I agree. And having been at the convention in person, I mean, I've been to a lot of conventions, and I
Hmm.
cannot say that conventions are normally as fun
Mm.
as your convention. And the DJ, Lil Jon coming out. I mean, there were so many moments where I was like, wait a minute. I wonder how this is playing on TV. That was the political strategist brain in me. But I
Uh-huh.
also was like, no matter how it's playing on TV, in the room you can feel the joy. It was very
Yeah.
palpable. But at the same time, every single person I spoke to said the same thing. I'm really, really excited, but we got to get to work. We have work to do here.
Absolutely
When you
right.
when you think
Remember,
about
Bill Clinton said that.
Exactly.
in his
Right. Like
speech.
this is
Yeah,
not going to be easy.
right,
Everybody was very
right.
clear-eyed about that.
That's right.
And based on my experience working for Hillary Clinton in 2016, I knew that to be true because
Yeah,
again, we, went through not the same experience, but the same letdown and disappointment with the results. When you
yeah.
think about the parallels between your campaign and some of the lessons from the 2016 campaign, what comes to mind that is similar? And obviously, yours was a much shorter campaign. But what are some of the things that are similar, and what are some of the things that are very different?
Well, I'll start with it was a very different time.
Mm.
And so the obvious point is that we're both women who were the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. She was the first and I was the second. But there was so much that is different about what was happening in 2016 and 2024, including what we had witnessed about who our opponent was
That's right.
because he had served for 4 years. And but I think there's something that is even more significant about what was different that is profound, and it's part of where we as a country and a world are right now and going forward. Profound amounts of mis and disinformation
Yeah.
that can move so quickly because of technology and now AI, and how it has infiltrated almost every information stream.
Hmm.
Now, but to be clear, that was present in 2016, but in a different way. When I was in the United States Senate, I was on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and we actually investigated Russia's interference in the 2016 election, and that was absolutely about mis and disinformation. And obviously, it was a nation state. But technology was also at a different phase of development than it was in 2024. So maybe that is both a similarity and a difference
Hmm.
between the two. Is that it was still present, and but technology had grown to a different form.
You said you're both women. Do you think that we've had the appropriate amount of conversations and a reckoning with how gender and race played into Trump's wins?
Well, again, I think both these two elections were different. And I think it's a huge mistake to assume, as some people are talking about, that it is because of gender
Mm.
that Trump won. And I will also say that we have to recognize, and one of the reasons I wrote the book is to make sure that as history tells the story of America's history, which is what those 107 days were,
Yeah.
that my voice will be present in the telling of that history. And part of what is important to be told about it is that it was the closest presidential election in the 21st century. So I reject the notion that the American people aren't open to or ready for a woman to be president of the United States.
Mhm.
And I think we should actually know more about the American people to know that that is the case.
There's a lot of analysis about where the Democrats did well, where they didn't do well. And we've seen since 2024 a lot of election wins, even recently in New Jersey and Virginia.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are a lot of stars like Zohran Mamdani in New York. Where do you fit into the future of the Democratic Party?
I fit in every way. I mean, here's the thing. If we want to talk about the future of the party, I think that there are a number of things that are important. The future of the Democratic Party has to be fueled by an understanding that the core issues for the American people have to be the priority issues for the party.
Mhm.
And that includes affordability, And that is about healthcare, it is about childcare, it is about rent, it is about food. And we have to see and hear that the people are telling us that is a fundamental issue. That can coexist with also fighting for our democracy.
Hmm.
I think part of the challenge of fighting for the Democratic Party and fighting for the future of our country is also about understanding that we the increasingly have as part of the challenge that the American people are feeling that power is concentrated in the few.
Hmm.
And we have to agree that the few don't have the right in our democracy as we created it to command the condition, well-being, and future of the populace. If we want to maintain any sense of pluralism and a belief in what that stands for, we have to also have as part of our vision a value that drives us that is about how we hold the people together, including a value that says that it is not a sign of weakness to have empathy,
Mm.
that we believe in the just making sure that we are uh, reinforcing that there must be a sense of responsibility for each other without judgment. And ultimately, I think that when we think about just where we are, it has to be about, look, Zerlina, there is so much about this moment that I think tells us we may not have seen the worst of it. Okay? Real talk.
Yeah.
But the one thing we know for sure, at the end of this administration, there's going to be a lot of debris. And when we think about how we clean it up, I would caution us, especially Democrats, of not being nostalgic in thinking that the way to address the debris and the fallout is to have some nostalgia about trying to bring back things the way they were. Because
Mm.
guess what? The way things weren't working for a lot of people. And so the future of the party has to be about some commitment to being innovative and really asking the question and looking in the mirror, are we relevant to the needs, the desires, the dreams, the fears of the people? So it can't just be about replacement in a way that you just kind of bring back what was. There also has to be some honest discussion about what wasn't working and understand that the people are really telling us they want a government that works for them, not for the people in elected office, um, not for the powerful, but for the people.
I know that you have to go shortly, but I have one more question. And when I saw you in London, you talked about a third of the American electorate that voted for Trump, a third that voted for you, and the last third, which is what I like to describe as the disengaged third.
Yeah.
What if you could implement any strategy to engage that last third of the American public in politics, in policy, get them involved, get them voting? What's step one in that plan?
I think step one is we have to listen
Mm.
to the people. And listen doesn't mean, hey, people, listen to me. Right? So when we talk about going on a listening tour,
Right.
it's just, it can't be about, so you can listen to me. Because, people have a lot to say.
Mm.
And part of what I hear a lot is people telling me and us in different ways that they've lost trust in these systems and in government. And we have to listen to them about how we regain that trust.
Vice President Kamala Harris. The book is 107 Days, and it is an amazing book. When you read the book, I have to be honest about this, it went fast.
Yeah.
It went really fast, and I'm like, wait, we're on day 72. Like, how did that even happen? And so it gives you a real sense of all that was going on in such a short amount of time, the shortest presidential campaign ever in the history of our country. Thank you so much, Madam Vice President, for
Thank
being
you.
with us today.
Thank you, Zerlina. It's good to be with you again. Thank you.
This is Mornings with Zerlina. Mornings with Zerlina.